So we have a viewer from Park Rapids who wants to talk about water quality issues. I can't really do justice to his very thorough and well-developed analysis of this issue. He's gone on at some length and references an MPCA report dated February 25 of this year. If people are interested in that information, they can probably find it there. But he is concerned about nitrate levels in lakes in southern Minnesota and phosphorus levels. I should tell our panel that last week on this program we actually broke some news. Representative Torkelson was here and talked a little bit about the deal that had been worked out with the governor's office on some of the issues relating to the buffers. But I suspect this viewer's question is more broad than that. So let's start with you, Senator Marty.
Sure.
Talk about water quality issues, maybe talk about the buffers.
The buffer bill, it was nice. We were afraid there was going to be huge tension, and both Representative Torkelson and Senator Skoye, we came up, Senator Skoye announced to our caucus last night what we came up with 2 weeks ago. And it's a very good compromise. I think it's fair. I think it'll help move us forward. Farm communities, others are feeling comfortable with this. And I think it's a good step forward, as I assume Representative Torkelson talked about. That will help a lot. Unfortunately, the nitrates problem is going to be more than just buffers, because that's one part of it. And a lot of the cities, the governor put in, I think it's $170 to $200 million for wastewater treatment for cities that have nitrate pollution. And I think we've still got a growing problem with it. We are having groundwater that has nitrates in it, which is terrible for drinking. The blue baby syndrome comes from that. It's a problem's a lot worse than it was 10, 15 years ago. I think that's going to be a huge range of things, which is going to heavily impact agriculture. So we're going to have to find ways that we can address it that protect the water and that work with the farm community, but we have to address it. I think the individual is right, and buffers is part of it, but it's only part of it.
I want to make sure that there's an open cooperation with all the different parties. Agriculture is what we address most when you're talking about nitrate levels, for example. And I have a concern because when the governor had his water summit, he said, we're not here to point fingers, we're here to find solutions, and then went on for 10 minutes on find solutions on what the farmers are doing wrong. And you have the people that are the caretakers of the land out there that very much, we all want clean water, we all want drinkable water, and agriculture is doing a lot of incredible things right now even to address some of these issues, and yet I still feel that sometimes when we talk about water quality, we kind of put them in the naughty box and say this is what you need to do, when we need to remember that this is their land, they're the caretakers of it, they're the ones that are producing food off of this, and they certainly don't want to do anything that can be harm or danger to people. So I'd like to see us all work together a little bit more than in the antagonistic relationship that I see right now.
That was probably, we just passed the Representative Torkelson bill in our committee this week, and the subject that we probably spoke about the most was what was going to get, I think as you say, most people are wanting to do the right thing, and they do that without any urging. But there are always a few players who, for some reason or another, aren't brought on board. And Representative Hansen talked about Dakota County, where most of them were in compliance, but there were a few who were dragging their feet. And at the time, in the old system, there were tools. Literally, in the extreme, you could threaten to sue or you could fine. And those tools aren't in the toolbox this time. And so what we asked was, it really isn't fair to all of those farmers who are doing the right thing to have one or two who, at the end, don't follow through. And we were having a hard time understanding what tool is there. We asked it in a number of ways. It wasn't until after the committee hearing that Ron Harnack came up and gave an example of a tool that watershed districts would have. And he gave a real one. If the farmer plows up the buffer strip, and the watershed district can send a letter saying you have to replant that in 90 days. If you don't replant it, then we will, and we'll have the bill on your next property tax statement. That's like what we do in the city. You have to shovel your sidewalk, or they're going to come do it for you and bill you. So, there is built into there some way that those few people who maybe drag their feet a little bit can be brought on board.
And your Park Rapids person, the concern they raise is a huge one. The Cold Spring Brewery, they've been trying to get permits to draw water from right near a trout stream, which will threaten the trout stream, so they've been having trouble getting it. The problem isn't the lack of water. The trouble is most other places where they could draw the water, the groundwater has nitrates in it, and they can't use it for their brewery. So they're saying, hey, we got to find a solution or we'll lose all these jobs. And the thing we have to do as a state, everyone, and it's not just cities, it's not just farmers, it's not just anyone, it's all of us have to find a way to reduce the problem because it is contaminating our water supply, and we're going to have to fix it.
Well, and the good news is that nitrate levels have gone down over the last 10 years. The MPCA's own reports in the Minnesota River is that nitrate levels are significantly down. And if you look at the nitrate levels from 20, 30, 40 years ago, they're down considerably from that. Modern day farming, the techniques, the things that they do, they don't want to use more nitrates than are needed any more than anyone because they're paying for that. And plus, again, I want to emphasize the people want the clean water. What I'd like to see the MPCA do is some of the reports that are coming out are peer-reviewed reports. They aren't necessarily scientifically based off of studies. At the Governor's Water Summit, they had said in 2 of the breakout sessions, one of the first things that people believed we needed to do was to invest in more studies. I firmly believe in that, and I support that. Let's let science decide what it is that we need to do. When we talk about cesspools and when we talk about undrinkable trout streams and stuff like that, those are very strong phrases, but they aren't necessarily based in what it is that we're really talking about. If there's a problem area, let's address it. But where we're doing the right things, let's make sure that we honor that as well.
Barry, as we traveled the state, and I suspect Representative Hausman did also last year and during our bonding trips, I think I sensed at least that we're looking at a decade or two ahead of us now, a lot of conversation about water quality. We saw city after city with aged infrastructure from the standpoint of wastewater handling and so on and so forth, treatment, and we're going to, I think, and many of these cities just don't have the resources financially to take care of that themselves. And I think a goodly part of bonding bills for a good number of years ahead is going to be directed towards wastewater infrastructure. It's just, we've seen, I mean, it's crumbling. It's not effective. It's crumbling. In some cases, it's absent. We've seen tubes, cameras going through what used to be sewer lines. The sewer line's gone, and all it is the molded clay that used to be around the sewer line. So that's where we are in some of our cities, and we need to take care of that.
And for a number of years, we've been aggressively dealing with wastewater infrastructure through the Public Facilities Authority. But I think what's going to be new this year is the governor is also interested in helping with drinking water infrastructure. That's going to put pressure on our bonding bill, and I think we've got to be willing to spend a little more money in that bill. I always quote, Arne Carlson was the first governor to sign $1 billion bonding bill. If we just factored in inflation, if we want to be doing the same for infrastructure as he was doing back then, the size of our bonding bills should be $1.45 billion now in a biennium. And we still are stuck at that $1 billion psychological barrier. And so in all of these areas, we are falling behind, whether it's transportation or wastewater infrastructure, and even all of our higher ed campuses are feeling that, the smart classrooms and laboratories they want. So I think as a state, we have to take a hard look at that infrastructure if those local communities do need help to be a little more aggressive and willing to invest in a greater way at the state level.
It's made more complicated in the so-called old days when much of what we have was built. There were federal subsidies to help that along.
In a whole number of areas.
They are gone.